All right, welcome to this episode of The Hours. I'm Tyler here with my friend Mark. We are SAVI Coaching. And as always, we like to get right into it and start with some sort of a question. Maybe we're gearing up for the big question today. So I do have another small question for you. Why do you take creatine, Mark Cassio?
I love your small questions. Two reasons, because I lift and I feel like you should optimize. If something is can be better, let's make it better. But also, I hear it's really good for brain function. It's one of the most studied and researched supplements there is, and there's tons of benefits. So why not?
Yeah,
Tyler, why did you start taking creatine?
because you do. And I'm like, I know that you do research. And I started taking creatine way back in the day when there was still a stigma around it, when I was younger and working out a lot. And it's like, oh, yeah, get the pump. And then everyone was like, "Oh, it's bad for you. It's bad for your liver, for your health," which led to all the research. And then I actually also did read a good amount of research afterwards. I'm like, man, why am I not taking creatine? So I'm glad that we share that. And so my question, to everybody else watching, listening, is why aren't you taking creatine? There might be a good reason, and if so, I would like to know it. Why aren't you taking creatine? And I would actually say that about three things. Why aren't you doing these three things? These are three small questions for anyone listening. And then, Mark, maybe you can answer. One, why aren't you taking supplements? Whether it be vitamins, creatine, green drink, green mixture, why wouldn't you take supplements? I haven't heard a good reason for that. And it seems like a very low hanging fruit for health, right? If health is energy, we need energy to move around, do things, create, enjoy life, serve. You need energy, right? And health is energy. Why wouldn't you do things to maximize your health? You're maximizing your energy, therefore maximizing your output and positive impact in the world. I think a lot of times, we don't consider ourselves as a battery. And, we get so annoyed when a battery on our phone is in the red because it can't function. And yet, how often do we operate from the red? I know I'm operating from the red way too often right now. I need to invest in my health more. I need more supplements. That'd be my first question. Um, Mark, why wouldn't someone take supplements? What's a question? What's an answer you've heard to that?
Answer is you should get these things naturally. So instead of taking a vitamin D supplement, go outside. And I do take supplements. I take a multivitamin every day. I take a gut health pill every day, and then one other one that may or may not boost testosterone. But the
I
idea
need, I
would
need, I need, I need the recommendation on that one,
okay,
actually.
I'll send it to you. I got it from Huberman Lab.
Okay.
But the idea would be only take them if you actually need them, because supplement shouldn't be a replacement. It should supplement and boost. So you should try to get it naturally from your food. It's kind of like one of those things where I'm big on people, or I want to get to a place where doctors are prescribing diet, exercise, and sleep
Yeah.
instead of, we'll just do this instead. Same thing with
Yeah.
supplements. Let's not do it instead. Let's use it to optimize.
Yeah. Okay. That's a really good reason. I like it. Okay. Second question. Why don't you do this? Would be, why don't you have a morning routine? I read a Forbes article that shared the 5 habits of the most successful people, compared to the 5 things that the least successful people do not do. And one of those 5 habits was having a morning routine. Whatever that morning routine may look like for you, a way to start your day, to invest in yourself, to not just flow into a screen or into work or what you have to do. And drinking coffee is not a morning routine. It may be a part of your morning, but it's not the morning routine. And so, what do you think keeps you or would keep people from having a morning routine?
Inconsistent wake up times, I would say. And if we're talking about optimizing, science has said going to sleep at the same time and waking up at the same time is great, right? Just get your circadian rhythm. So I would say inconsistency of sleep or wake up times, and lack of intentionality, unorganization. Having small children can
Yeah.
definitely do a number to your morning routine. But yeah, that'd be the only two things I could think of.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And I've observed this a lot, and I hope that this serves coaches, especially. Coaches can be some of the most intentional and efficient human beings on the planet when it comes to their team. They will look for any process that can give them any sort of an edge with their team. And yet, coaches can be some of the worst on the planet when it comes to efficiency and systems for themselves and their own health.
Yeah, agreed. You can't give away what you don't possess. So if we want our teams to be disciplined or have great habits, I think you as a coach need to do the same, because you can't, run a program that is organized and disciplined if your personal life is in disarray. Same with your core values. Like if you want your core value to be um, resilient and you're not resilient, it's going to be really, really difficult for your program to be resilient, because when things get hard, when you hit adversity, if you're not resilient, that's the example you're setting for your team. So yeah, I would say if you are one of those coaches, and on our cohort 2 weeks ago, our cohorts are where we meet with all of our grow members once a week. It's our group consulting call. They ask us any questions they want, and then we do a deep dive into a certain topic. This month it was drive and space. Next month Tyler's doing lock left. But the question I asked off the bat to our grow members that were in our group cohort was, what personal disciplines do you want to have for this upcoming season, or which ones are you currently doing? So is it more sleep, better diet, um, journaling, reading, whatever it was? And it's amazing, like coaches instantly could come up with things that we need to start doing. And I just told them, hey, just start one, and start small with all this stuff. So if it's a morning routine, maybe your morning routine is just waking up and reading one passage, right? Like, so I have a book right next to my bed called The Daily Dad. Just wake up and it's like a paragraph, like 3 or 4 sentences that you read every morning.
Yeah. I mean, that would be a really good community post topic in our community. We got over 1,400 coaches in our community. If you're not there, we would invite you to join us there. I think that one of the greatest indicators of the direction of your life is going to be the people that you spend most of your time with. And that's one of the reasons we started this community, is we wanted like-minded coaches to have a place to be encouraged, to be challenged, and to have some accountability. Because as a coach, oftentimes we are the ones holding people accountable and yet don't have people in our lives that are holding us accountable. And so we look forward to sharing that thread. And I know I am committed to being more healthy in the next quarter of the year. And so I'm excited to post into the thread about what I'm going to be healthy with and about and add my one habit. In fact, let me think about it right now. Mark, what's one health habit that you're going to add? Let's say, a coach just wants to copy and follow. What's one health habit that you want to add in your life that maybe we could latch onto?
For me, a change has been working from home. I found that I drink less water, which is amazing. You'd think you drink more water at home, but just being out of my routine. So I'm going to I'm going to try to do a gallon a day. I don't think I've ever really challenged myself to do that. I've always drank water. I drink coffee, water, and the occasional adult beverage. That's it. Uh, I always get plenty of coffee, but I need to make sure I'm getting enough water. What about you? There you go. I'm going to take a sip as well. Cheers.
Cheers. I don't know why whenever I see a Stanley cup like that, I just assume that it's not water and that people are hiding some elixir or concoction that's not water. But okay, you have water in your Stanley.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of creatine in there.
Maybe a little bit of creatine, 4.5 grams a day.
Oh, here's I'll give you one more. I take some electrolytes too, little powder electrolytes. Yeah, tastes delicious.
I would actually say that the powdered electrolytes are a nice little cheat code to drink more water because it does taste delicious. And so you're like, oh, I want to drink more of it. So it's just a little system over time to make you more efficient.
Yeah, crazy enough, I actually like the salt in it. Uh, so whenever I'm working out, I drink electrolytes with it, and it's something that I enjoy. Ooh, here's something: your personal disciplines or just taking care of yourself. Reward yourself with something good. So this is probably your favorite podcast if you're listening. Just make sure you're always listening to this when you're on the treadmill or you're working out, right? So I look forward to my workouts because I'm doing something that I enjoy. I'll listen to basketball content or leadership content or just a book on Audible. Just read one, story worthy, really, really good. Highly recommend. But anyway, yeah, so stack a habit was something that you enjoy.
The only podcast that I like more than this one is Revisionist History by Malcolm Gladwell. And since this has gone on podcast, I re-listen to every one of our episodes weekly, and there's a number of other ones I listen to as well, but they don't supplant this one. I would say my commitment for the next 3 months is stretching. Um, Actually, I had a guy over here doing some stretching body work. It was like it was not comfortable massage. I mean, it was like fascia scraping and like deep digging into like muscles and like active stretching. And it was so painful multiple times. I was on the verge of saying, like, "Stop! I can't take it anymore." And that's right when he eased off. But he travels the world with a professional tennis player and is like stretches him 3 to 5 times a day. Like that's his full time job. So I've never. I was bruised along my shoulder. Anyway, all that being said, I was shamed with my hip flexibility, and he said, "You may have the tightest hips that I've ever worked on." And so I'm committed to doing a hip mobility stretching every single day because as you get older, you get less flexible, and mobility is something I really value and prioritize to be able to stay active as I continue to get older.
Yeah,
That's my
stretching.
opinion.
Stretching could have easily been mine. I need to stretch more, and tell you what really wrecked my hips was COVID. Sitting at a desk all day. Just I did a bunch of content creation, like we all did as basketball coaches, just diving into stuff. And I sat for so long. I don't think my right hip has recovered from 2019, 2020 yet.
Well, you better work on that right hip because you need that right hip when you're cross court dinking on the pickleball court. All right, let's shift that. The small question became the big question. The big question is, what are you doing for your health? And you cannot pour from an empty cup. Prioritize your health. Health is energy. Energy is life. The more life you have, the more life you can give. We give a lot of life as coaches, so do prioritize your health. I would love to hear your answers to that. We'll be posting in the thread. And if you have not joined our SAVI coaching community, please do so and answer. Mark.
Yeah. Let's I'll wrap this up, our big topic here today, as me first 4S. Something we talk to our team about all the time is be selfish on and off the court, but for your team. So on the court, balls in the air, my feet, my vision, my shot, my drive. If none of that is the best play, then we share it. We make the play for our teammates. But it's also a great lesson in having the credibility to confront. If I'm not consistently on time, I can't confront a teammate that's not on time. If I'm not consistently giving great effort, I can't confront a teammate when their effort dips below standard. So coaches, if you're listening, take care of yourself so you can take better care of your team, and then that should be a lesson or a leadership learning opportunity for your players. Is if you can't lead yourself, you certainly can't lead others.
All right, let's transition to mailbag. These are topics that people have asked for this episode of the Hours in our community, and we will fire away. Mark, you want to kick it off?
Yeah. All right. Here we go. One for you here. What are the best methods or drills used to shore up our transition offensive spacing? Uh, this coach is coaching middle school, and he says our girls tend to all want to run to the rim. So we'll have two or three girls clogging the lane at all times. What would you do to fix that spacing in transition?
First, you have to align your principles, your language, and get to a place of one job, zero excuses. So the quickest fix that I have found for spacing and transition is clear roles. The more options that you give players in transition, the more reasons or excuses they have for why they didn't do their job. And we were doing this last night with our middle school girls, actually, and over and over again. Like if you're the wolf, you always go to the right corner. If you're the lock, you always go to the left corner. If you're the dragon, you're always going to fill the opposite action spot to the ball. If you're the racker, you're going to declare a side and hunt. Right? If you're a porch player, you fill the opposite porch or short corner from the ball. If you're the wide spot, you're always going to fill the opposite side of the court from the ball, in the wider stretch spot. So they know exactly what they have to do. So at the youth level especially, I would be laser focused and super clear on what roles are. As players get more advanced, that's when I would give some optionality, but I wouldn't give nearly as much optionality at the beginner level. So that would be first. We would align on those things, and the question that I would ask when pausing when they did have bad spacing would be, did you do your job? Then they scatter and change and flow. Now, two things I would do to actually help improve that, and now that we're clear, like that we'd actually use to train it. One we did last night. I actually filmed it. I'll be editing it and putting it into our school classroom. is just 4v2 rebounding. And 4v2 rebounding just creates a lot of transition because we're taking a shot and immediately rebounding and immediately transitioning. And that gives us an opportunity with a little bit more space because we're 4v2. And we're always working off of a rebound, which should result in some sort of transition, whether it be a made or a missed shot. And then they get to play out of that transition. So you can incorporate any sort of your rebounding roles or rebounding principles out of it. So I'd probably train it first, or one way I train it would be in 4-on-2 rebounding. And then the second thing that I would do is just focus on it in real gameplay, 5-on-5 gameplay, and put a consequence to it. So in transition, if the team doesn't do their job on offense and they don't arrive in shape or arrive in space, then I just blow the whistle, be like turnover, no shape. Or one of my favorite terms for youth basketball players is turnover, got creepy. They crept inside the 3-point line. I'll give one last verbal trigger on this. As far as in transition, is with everyone running to the rim, you bolt to your spot. If you ever get behind the defense, you make a run to the rim. If you're ever not open, you get to your spot. So I mean, it's really simple. You bolt. If you get behind the defense, you go to the rim. If you're not open, you get out to your spot. So if Mark's already at the rim's not open, so I should get to my spot. So that simplicity of expectation is probably going to help you as well.
Yeah, I find one of the hardest things to do is for youth players or inexperienced players to figure out, do I round my cut to the rim, or do I just run to my spot? Just nine or space would be my teaching. If you don't feel like you can get a nine, get to your spot. I think you nailed the answer there. I was going to start with roles, so I won't add anything, but I will save my feedback or my answer for the game of the week. I'll share another way that we can train that later in the pod. So stay tuned.
Perfect. And I'm going to save my teach better for our teach better segment, which I'm typing down right now.
On Tuesday, a coach asked, "How do we attack switching?" And mismatches came up. So Tyler jotted this down in our mailbag. It says, "When should we hunt mismatches on the switch versus keep doing what we're doing?" And when I read this one, immediately my thought went to when the mismatch is the biggest advantage on the floor. So, goal of offense is to find the big advantage. Tyler and I are working on a drive and space course. Layer one, as of now in this iteration, is find and finish, meaning find the big advantage and finish the big advantage. The big advantage being a 9 or a 7. So, if the goal of offense is to find the big advantage, then the mismatch might be maybe we are quote unquote neutral 5-on-5, but you've got, you know, I don't know, Kevin Durant on a player that, is smaller or whatever it is. You got your post player on their point guard or your point guard on their worst defender. If that is the biggest advantage that we can find, let's exploit it. But if it's just a small advantage, like, our offensive player is probably better than their defender there, or we have a size advantage, but this player we're hunting the mismatch for isn't a great scorer, then I might just keep doing what we're doing. I think I got this from the Golden State Warriors. They just said wash it. I love it's because it's sticky. So some of our terminology off the ball screen was like turn it, twist it, snake it. So for this switch, we would say, hey, just wash it. Let's just keep moving the ball. If we have a mismatch somewhere, we will exploit it by moving the ball, because when you move the ball, you move the defense. So, short answer: when it's the biggest advantage on the floor, let's hunt that matchup and exploit.
Okay, I like that answer. And I also like that we're probably furthest apart on this answer of anything that we've discussed in the mailbag previously. Um, I don't disagree with the answer. I would I would just be way more on the side of kill the mismatch. I would agree with the principle, which is it has to be the biggest advantage on the floor. I would not find it by washing it. I would hunt it whenever we're neutral. I think the goal of the mismatch would be to create the advantage and get us into dominoes. The moment we're not in dominoes, find it again. At nearly all levels, I would argue that the best action you can find is the mismatch at nearly all levels. And I think that we see this at the highest level in the NBA, which is like for most teams, all LeBron teams for sure, but for most teams, like that is their offense is get the switch that you want, attack that switch, and that creates your dominoes. And I would say that it's only greater and more obvious at lower levels, like at the youth level, where our academy is operating right now. That's the best offense on the floor. There's not a better action than hunt the biggest mismatch. What am I missing there?
Um, Nothing. I think where I come from a place of washing it would be I've seen a lot of teams try to exploit the mismatch and offense bogs down. We turn it over trying to force feed it in the post. I don't know that I would disagree with you if it was just get the ball to that person, that mismatch in space, and then wash it through there, right? Then create the advantage. Like I like what you
Yeah.
said is like it might not even be for the score. It might just be getting some dominoes. So yeah, not the same answer, but I don't think we disagree with either one of us. Just
Gosh,
maybe a
I'm
different.
looking for more disagreement here, and I'm trying hard to just create the conflict because that's a good storyline.
I
Okay,
know.
all right. Here's a question for you. You get a switch on a ball screen, right? You got cross match. So big on a small, big guarding a small, and a small guarding a big. Which mismatch do you attack? And you can't say the better player. Let's say everyone's equal, and it's just a size mismatch.
I would go attack with the small against the big because,
Agreed.
and here's my
100% of the
reason.
time. Yeah,
Yeah.
100% of the time for me as well.
Okay. Maybe we'll disagree on the reasoning, and maybe
Okay,
that's
let's
the
go.
disagreement today.
Well, let me just
So
pause before we do that.
yeah.
Coaches, please take that away, and you'll get some reasons right now. But that's probably one of the biggest misses that I've observed is, oh, it's very obvious physically when you see a big being guarded by a small and you try to pound the ball in. We'll give you reasons in a moment. I would say don't do that. Instead, if you get a switch, let your small attack the big and communicate that that's how you want to prioritize your attacking through mismatches for these reasons. Mark.
All right, my reasons. One, you're going to have maybe your smallest player trying to make that post entry against their biggest player, and to do that, you're probably picking up your dribble. Um, Second thing is I think there's a lot of opportunities to double the post. We don't run a lot of back to the basket stuff anyway, so it just doesn't fit us. We're more obviously driving space or racing space where we're creating advantage off the bounce, or that's how we put pressure on the rim is by attacking off the dribble more than anything else. So it just fits more us. So and I think it's an easier way to get into dominoes where we can drive, kick, space, and share, expand our advantage that way. I'm guessing though you have a different reason.
Um, Two additional reasons. One, fouls. You're more likely to get fouls when driving downhill, especially against a slower footed player, generally that's not used to guarding on the perimeter. And I believe that a foul is the best outcome of the possession for us, assuming we don't have a nine. So I think you're just going to get a lot more fouls. My second one is similar to yours. It's just a turnover game. You're more likely to turn the ball over trying to post enter than just dribble and drive. So we turnovers kill us. So we want to avoid anything that could possibly be a turnover. And then lastly, just because think about reps, think about every offensive rep your team has gotten through their entire lives. Have they played off of drive and kick game more or post entry game more? It's like 10 to 1 at every level, right? So your team, once we draw hell, right? Your team is more comfortable playing off drive and kick game than post entry game, which is another argument I think for just not posting up as much. There's also an argument for posting up more, but I think that's just the reality of it. That if you're not going to spend a lot of time on how you're going to play in dominoes off of kickouts from the post, then you probably don't want to attack through there as much.
All right, I'll ask you one more, Tyler.
Yeah.
Yeah. What questions would you ask someone interviewing an assistant or a JV coach in your basketball program?
I think interviews are pretty useless. I think interviews suck. I don't know why you would do interviews. Let me give an example and then application. I've hired many video editors and I've made many poor decisions and I've had many interviews and everyone's really good on the interview. Everyone's going there. They have the right answers or they say everything that you want to hear. Like this person's going to be great, but then they do the work. And once they do the work, that's when you know if they're good or not. And so, especially when it comes to basketball coaching, I mean, they have to do the work. So instead of an interview, I've just gone to asking them if they'd be willing to come and volunteer and coach a practice or a training session, or come and do a film breakdown with the team. Show me your work. And that's also what I've gone to with video editors as well. It's like they're like, oh, let's set up an interview. I'm like, no, no need. Here's a project. Are you willing to do this project for free in order to have a chance at getting this job? Because then you can see the work. You get to see how they interact with the players. You get to interact with them. You get to give them feedback. How do they receive feedback? You can see, you can see their coaching philosophy right in front of you. The, Everyone's going to answer the question like, I'm a transformational coach. I'm doing it for the kids. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. I just think interviews suck. So the only interview question I would ask is, are you willing to volunteer for this thing? Right. Back when I was training all of our directors at PGC, it was a requirement that anyone that ever wanted a job as a director or summer coach with us at PGC had to volunteer their first week. Had to. And that was right there. If that was a no for them, no, I'm not willing to invest a week for free. Then like, well, then you're not the right fit. Um, that was the one interview question. Will you come and volunteer? So then we can evaluate you and see, like, are you going to be the right fit? Yes or no?
I'll for the do the work thing. I love how you said don't like interviews, like just you don't know someone until you work with them or live with them. Everybody's gonna look good in the interview. So completely agree. I would I would ask if somebody inquired about a job, what is your ideal role? What role are you looking for in the program? I really love defense. Okay, well, tell me what your defensive philosophy is. If it's aligned or close enough aligned, then yes, they'll probably be a good fit. And then I would say, okay, if you were in charge of installing our defense, what would that look like? Walk me through that process and just see how prepared they are for that. And then I'll give you two questions because I'm banking that this coach is still going to do an interview. Um, or
Why?
if this,
Why?
uh, just because it's what people
I
do,
think you're
right?
right, but I'm just like, yeah, it's so crazy to me how often we're presented with a compelling argument, and yet be like, oh, that's a great point. I'm not going to change, which is like, why do we have conversation? And I've gone. I'll say this too in the coaching world. I've gone to a place if I recognize that um, there's no likelihood of change or at least engagement in the other person's ideas. It's just not even worth it to have the conversation. You know, I, there's just so much yelling back and forth, especially if we think about politics right now. Sorry, we're going political. There's so much yelling back and forth between people that would never change their minds. And I mean, one way to just quiet the noise is don't engage with anyone that's not willing to change. And then all of a sudden, you have so much more peace. It's like, all right, hey, you're not willing to change, so there's no reason for us to yell at each other. Whereas, like, there's a minority of people that are actually willing to change, and that's where you're going to get productive discourse.
Yeah. How often does a disagreement or an argument lead to one of the people in the argument saying, you know what, you're right, I'm going to change my mind, which is why we should probably talk to officials less. Because very rarely are people going to change their minds, or even parents, right? Um, I think just let's just align and agree that our priorities will always be different. The parent is going to choose their son or daughter over the team, and the coach should choose the team or the program over an individual. And if we know that going in, just we might not agree, but we can agree to disagree and be aligned on why we do what we do. I'll also share another thing is why don't people change? Why is this coach, and I'm not calling this coach out, but it's just reality, likely going to still do an interview? I was reading my morning reading. Part of my morning routine was on inertia, and inertia is the stubborn resistance of change in the universe. So the longer you have held a belief, whether that's a habit that you have or a belief that you have, the stronger the resistance to change will be. So maybe this coach has been coaching for 30 years and has always conducted interviews. Be a lot more difficult for that coach to get away than if this is a first year coach that's never conducted interviews and that's why he's asking the question. Maybe that coach would be more willing to change.
You are one of the people in my life that is willing to change their opinion on things. So I would say that was one of the things that attracted me to you initially and has led to our partnership. There's a handful of other people in my life. So that at least for me, that's something that attracts me to people, and it's what I would look for in a business partner, is a willingness to change. And so, lastly, if you did have to do an interview, maybe it's a requirement or whatnot, I would look for a willingness to change. So, regardless, okay, here we go. Case study. Mark, I'm interviewing you right now, and you can keep your answer very, very short. Mark, do you like two-line layups?
I do not.
Would you ever be willing to change that opinion?
Depends on what the two-line layups look like or why we were doing them.
All right, very good. Right. So like just like something like that, an interview, like, are you willing? Is there a willingness to change? Right. So you said, what's your defensive philosophy? Whatever they say, I would probably follow up. Would you ever be willing to update that opinion with new information? Would you ever be willing to change? Right. And like gauging a willingness to engage and change, I think would be something.
I was going to say, or asking why that is your defensive philosophy. And maybe it's just, hey, this is what I know. I think a lot of coaches, especially when you're looking for an assistant, they probably have less experience. So they're probably just coaching what they know and what they're most comfortable with. It might not even be something that they're really strongly held to, right? It might be an absorbed belief of just, this is what I've been around. So this is my answer. So I'll get to two more questions you could ask. Biggest blind spot or weakness as a coach? What is yours? Right? Just see how self aware they are. And then I think this one's really important in any assistant coach. Do you want to be a head coach? Because I think they are going to be more willing to change or to grow. They're going to be the go getters, the ones that are a little bit more motivated to take on more work because they're trying to get better. They're trying to climb the ladder. So I'd rather hire somebody that wants to be a head coach where I might have them for a few years and then move on than to have a lifetime assistant. I've had some lifetime assistants that have been awesome, but I think it's really attractive when somebody wants to be a head coach.
Yeah. If you got a three side and you want to get a two side, you would burn the corner and push the wide down. Does that make sense? You remember that or no?
I do, but I remember it differently.
Okay,
So
how do you remember it?
I
Because I'm willing
remember,
to update my beliefs and change.
okay, yeah, same. I remember having a two side and saying if we wanted to create a triple gap, this is one way we could do it. So if you put, yeah, player three in the corner, and let's say player one passed to two and fingers cut, they cut through. This is the scenario I was referencing is if you wanted to expand that gap, we could bump four down and three in. I actually like that better than burning the wide spot in that situation because it to me I think it creates a little bit more space. One would be in that right corner, and then five can bump all the way up to the wide spot on the right. There you go. So it gives you a chance to now play with a porch or a dunker. So we could drop one for a two, and then it gives you the corner three. So it just gives a little bit more movement to me and creates a little bit easier space. And I will go with the three side. Gosh, this might be a situation where we don't disagree. I would burn the middle and burn the wide. So on this side, let's say we had three and four in the action on the left side. So let's say three is setting a ball screen for four on the left wing. Sorry, and four's yeah right there. So we got like a ball screen happening there. I would burn the five in this scenario because I love burning the 45 and it helps us maintain our shape. So now we have corner action spot filled when we burn if we don't create an advantage. So what we would do is if four came off that ball screen right when they crack the shell, five would burn. Um, yeah, so I don't know if that means we agree or disagree.
Mark, let me ask you what are some examples of that where it's like, okay, you could say we're going to guard this that way and this that way, or we're going to do this at this time versus like principles you can apply across the board.
Yeah, I would say what that reminded me of is have as little if then statements as possible. So I'll try to think of a example off the top of my head here. In my courtside calls, my consulting calls, I find a lot of coaches that are not used to running a conceptual offense will try to create rules. So if we have um, if the ball is here, then we're gonna pass across and do this. But if we have the ball in that same spot and this other player is over here, then we're going to run this action. And I just always tell coaches, like, well, your players have to process that in a very, very short amount of time. Let's have as little if then statements as possible. Can we teach in one if then statement? If this happens, then we. So if we have a two side, then we burn the wide spot. If we have a three side, then we burn the wide spot. much easier to execute.
I like it. So I think we do agree in that. And so that's why I always just say, ball comes to your side, burn the wide. And it rhymes. That's probably my biggest reason. Ball comes to your side, burn the wide. And it's just consistent across the board. So I think consistency is kind of what we're looking for. Okay, this is a good one from Steve Deering. Is it better to be the CEO and CFO for your youth programs, or to make a small committee and have them do everything besides tactics and strategy?
I'll give a real simple answer. I just think that as long as you have alignment, I don't think it matters. I think if you need to be increasingly necessary for an alignment standpoint, then do so. But ideally, you would be as hands off as possible and give as much ownership. But I also think that goes to the capacity of your youth coaches or whoever be on that committee.
Yeah, agreed. I would say I would agree with ideally, you are not dealing with any of the day to day of your youth programs. You're you're making disciples. So I think that's the best way to have an impact is to make disciples. And disciples is just basically this: like you make disciples that make disciples that make disciples, and that's your impact. If you are only ever the guru to the people that you can directly spend time with and invest in, no matter how great of a leader you are or how compelling your 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 teaching is, your impacts can be very very limited. Which is why, at least for me, and I think it's similar for you, Mark, it's why I do savvy coaching instead of coaching a team. So I'm out and about. One of the most boring but most common questions you get when you meet someone, what do you do, right? And for simplicity, I say I'm a coach, right? Like, oh, where do you coach? I'm sure you get this one as well, right? Well, I actually don't coach anywhere. I coach coaches. And the motivation for me in doing this thing is, again, like to make disciples who make disciples who make disciples. I could coach a team. Mark has coached a team more recently than I have and had a huge impact. But I do believe that the impact I can have on the sport, the game, and on people is by coaching coaches who coach coaches who coach coaches. So the greatest impact you can have in your community is to make disciples who make disciples who make disciples, who are saying the things and doing the things and acting the way that that you believe is going to be the most transformational. And so, whenever you can hand off and coach people, that's how you're going to have your greatest impact.
Agreed. You're equipping others to have the same impact that you would have
Yeah.
and freeing up more time for you. All right.
Teach better. This was related to what we were talking about at the very beginning around spacing. Coach asked, how do you get players, especially middle school age or youth players, to keep their space in transition and not just all run to the rim? Well, think about how you teach things, because what's probably being said by you and your other coaches, parents, is don't all run to the rim. Don't all run to the rim. So the teach better principle is coach from the world of do and avoid the world of don't. We default to don't. Don't dribble to the corner, right? Don't shoot that shot. And if you coach from the world of don't, you're going to see very little change and you're not actually sharing with them a solution. Instead, coach from the world of do. So establishing roles is coaching from the world of do. Instead of don't run to the rim, do run to your spot. And you can apply that across all of your teaching. And it would be very, very valuable for a coach to record themselves audio wise for a practice and then just go, how many negative statements, or as Mark calls them, how many red bike statements do you make versus how many green bike statements do you make? And I think you will be amazed at how many red bike statements we make, how much time we spend telling people, talking about things that we don't want done.
I'm also going to go game of the week here and based on the same question. So again, the question was transition spacing. I think a good coach can modify a game or come up with their own game or drill to work what they want to. So this coach is asking for, like, how do I train my players to do this? I tell this coaches all the time, recreate where the breakdown is and get as close as possible to it. So this would be my method, and this will be our game of the week. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to pull up easy diagram here. This would be a way where we would play 5-on-5. We have 5 offensive players. It doesn't really matter where they are. I just have 2 defenders out here just to highlight the on-ball defender and who is going to eventually be the wall defender here. So I'm going to give offense some type of advantage. We could start ball on back. We could start shoulder to shoulder. And I'm going to tell player 1, get a 9, or if 2 takes away your 9, we kick to the corner, which is likely going to create a 7. So we're going to hunt a 9 first. We might end this with a 7. And then we're going to randomize the start here. We might go miss break or made break. We don't know what's going to happen because this is a somewhat live scenario. So what we're going to do is create a quick shot and then a quick opportunity for this red team to transition the other way. If we do not fill our roles, if we're all running down the middle of the floor like this coach asked, then we just stop. We rewind and redo. Just let's recreate that. Let's do that again. Let's say 1 shot a layup and made it, and our made break was out of whack. I would say 1, let's give you a layup again. Red team, let's do a better job of filling our roles. Does anybody need a reminder on our roles? No, we got it. Good, go. And just keep recreating that. So all 5-on-5 games until we figure this out would start with a shot instead of starting by just checking the ball up top.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm doing on practice next week. That's
Game of the
awesome.
week.
Game of the week.
Yeah, and we if you want a name for this one, just call it block and break. Like you're probably gonna have to block out and break, or there's gonna be a quick shot. But yeah, so even this is even better than a transition quote unquote drill or like a touch the line start, because touch the line is a static start, right? We're all stationary. We know coach is going to throw the ball to somebody on the baseline. We know, right? So just make it a little bit more random start. If we want to work on the transition from defense to offense, just make your team transition from defense to offense to start the possession.
I love it. We've got a game of the week. You got to teach better. You learned how to pour into yourself and energize yourself. We went through some mailbag questions, and that's what we do here on the Hours. Thank you for joining us. I'm Tyler. That's Mark. We're Savvy Coaching. Until next time,
Stay
stay
savvy.
savvy.